This is the village. Can you come back?
Merci.
Maybe shake your head.
Ça c'est OK. Ça c'est bien aussi. Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Merci. Bahrain was the forerunner of this. Because there were 600 they can welcome investors.
Oh, I have the case.
And here, all of New York real estate is controlled.
Actually, the question you wanted to yeah.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Anybody speaks English? Bahrain is a small island. Traditionally, it is very famous in pearl diving. And still, we have the best pearl in the world. Still natural. Of course, becoming this. And we are proud to give her this small gift for a lovely lady.
It's beautiful. Yo también tengo una lembranza for you.
Thank you.
Is it maple of Angola?
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. This is I wanted to give to you, but this is for you, Minister.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, and we're very happy to pass it on to you and pass it to them.
Thank you.
This is, of course, my country is very famous. And we're very proud that this is still existing in our country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I'm Warren Ho, IPI's Senior Advisor for External Relations, and I'm happy to welcome you to this side event to the 2018 High-Level Political Forum on Affordable Housing for All, organized by the International Peace Institute and the Kingdom of Bahrain, and co-organized by the governments of Angola, Bulgaria, Malaysia, and Paraguay, in collaboration with UN-Habitat and the UN Development Program, UNDP. The countries I mentioned and their collaboration with UN-Habitat and UNDP is a notable example of a partnership seeking to catalyze efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Our objective today is to discuss ongoing and future government efforts to improve access to adequate housing and to achieve SDG Target 11.1, which reads, quote, by 2030, ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services and upgrade slums. We will be hearing from high-level officials from the United Nations and from countries which represent different regions of the globe with sharply different characteristics that individualize what is the universal right of access to suitable housing, whatever your locality or ability to pay for it. While the event is about housing for all, it acknowledges the diversity of issues and solutions from these countries. Everyone has the right to adequate housing. However, people may have different expectations, cultural preferences, and needs regarding housing. Countries and cities also differ in their capacity to respond to housing needs and ways to do it. We will begin by showing a 7-minute video produced by the Department of Housing in Bahrain, and then hear from our first speaker, Asim bin Yaqub Al-Hamr, the Minister of Housing in Bahrain. So now, keep your seats and we'll watch the video.
Housing is a vital component of living in a safe and stable environment. And for more than 5 decades, the social housing sector has played a key role in improving the quality of life for Bahraini citizens. Since the early 1960s, the leadership of Bahrain has taken the initiative to provide suitable housing for citizens. Evolving over time, due to challenges that came with each era, the first housing development was the establishment of the Housing and Ownership Committee in 1962. This was followed by developing the new housing cities at the time of Madinat Isa, Madinat Hamad and Madinat Zayed, in addition to tens of other housing projects that were built across the kingdom's governorates. After the independence of the Kingdom of Bahrain in 1971, a paradigm shift took place in the housing sector of the kingdom, with the founding of the country's government establishments and ministries. These included the Ministry of Housing in 1975, followed by Eskan Bank, the financial arm of the ministry, in 1979. As a result, the launch of successive housing policies started with the aim of improving the quality of life for all citizens, especially those with limited income.
طبعا كنت أنا ساكن في أجار وكان علي المكان جدا ضيق، ومن بعدها انتفعت بالوحدة الإسكانية مع البيت الضيق اللي فرحني، وحسيت بالفرح، حسيت بالسعادة من شقة من مكان صغير لبيت يهمني أنا وأهلي. كان صراحة فرحة لا توصف.
Those housing policies and developments have contributed to providing thousands of housing services for citizens. Out of its keenness to organize the mechanism of providing housing services, offering citizens the necessary flexibility and choices to benefit from its services, the ministry created a set of housing standards, organizing housing services according to each citizen's individual income. In addition, the ministry provided various options for the Bahraini citizens. These are unit and apartment ownership services, 3 types of financing services, purchasing, building and renovation, plots, rental apartment services. The Ministry of Housing is committed to the principles of transparency and equality for all citizens in order for them to obtain suitable housing services. This is implemented through the electronic draw system, which guarantees equal chances for every citizen to choose the types and location of their housing units. The final stage comes with the desired outcome of the citizen receiving the usufruct contract. That's the keys to the housing unit and starting a new life in a safe environment with his or her family in their new home.
الحين أنت عندك بيتك، استقرار تام ونفسية طيبة، والحمد لله الواحد يقول الحمد لله.
The Ministry of Housing gives Bahraini women priority by providing 2 categories of housing services. These are permanent housing for divorced or widowed women and their children, and temporary housing for single or abandoned women.
هو المرأة البحرينية حظيت عناية كاملة وخاصة في الأنظمة الإسكانية خصوصا الأخيرة، وهذا كله مستمد من دستور مملكة البحرين، حيث نصت المادة 9 تحديدا في الفقرة واو على أن تعمل الدولة على توفير السكن للمواطن البحريني ذوي الدخل المحدود. الوزارة قامت بإعطاء المرأة أيا كان وضعها الاجتماعي حقها في السكن. نبدأ بالمرأة المتزوجة، أعطتها الحق بأنها تتقدم بالطلب الإسكاني سواء باسمها أو باسم الزوج أو مشاركة فيما بينهما إذا تم الاتفاق على ذلك. أما المرأة المطلقة والأرملة الحاضنة لأبناء قصر تصرف لها بدل السكن من تاريخ التقدم بالطلب الإسكاني بناء على وضعها الاجتماعي.
In the light of challenges facing the housing sector all over the world, and based on the United Nations recommendations to the Ministry of Housing in 2002 to review housing policies in the Kingdom, the Ministry has given special attention to playing a pivotal role in providing housing services to citizens early in the decade.
نظرت في الخيارات كلها ولقيت ان هاي الخدمة خدمة مزايا، خدمة تعتبر من النوع اللي يسمونه فاست تراك. خدمة الفاست تراك هي خدمة ما تستغرق فترة طويلة، استغرقت خلال شهر أو شهرين تمكنت من الانتهاء من الإجراءات كلها بالبرنامج، تمكنت من السكن في العقار اللي أنا اخترته.
The Mosaic program has numerous features that prevents the accumulation of applications on waiting lists while ensuring a speedy service.
خدمة مزايا من تاريخ تقديمي عليها اللي هو كان في بداية شهر 1/2016 استغرقت فترة ما تتجاوز الشهرين، يعني أنا سكنت في العقار اللي أنا اخترته بنهاية شهر 3 في نفس السنة. طبعا هاي الخدمة هي الخدمة الأسرع الموجودة والأنسب للشباب البحريني اليوم، وأنا أنصح بهالخدمة لسبب واحد بس، إن أنت لك حرية الاختيار حسب رغبتك.
The social sector in the Kingdom of Bahrain is testament to the wise leadership and keenness of the government on developing the quality of life for all citizens over a journey that started half a century ago. The effort to improve the lives of Bahraini citizens continues into the future.
I would like now to begin the speaker by introducing the Minister of Housing of Bahrain, Basim bin Yaqub Al-Hamr.
Well, thank you very much and good morning. Frankly speaking, when we thought of organizing this session, we thought we perhaps do it very early in the morning so that we have as little show up as possible. But I have to say thank you to all. The reason why we started with the film, because honestly speaking, we thought this will give a better coverage of the history and the success story in my country. Although it is 7 minutes, but I thought maybe my speech will be as low or as small as possible. If we take a step back in time, changing people's life has already started in my country. It started with a vision and an action. Vision that started with the leadership to achieve quality of life for its citizen. And what do I mean by the action? They started at that time forming the Committee for Housing and Housing Services. In fact, this has all happened in a very early time, in 1962. The social housing as a vocabulary or as a terminology was hardly unknown and undiscovered at that time. And It was in the time that we had no waiting list, and we have no overcrowding, and certainly no homeless at that time. That by itself is considered as a major turning point in our housing journey in the Kingdom of Bahrain. That particular decision in 1962 has changed the landscape of Bahrain forever. Bahrain started soon building its very first new town called Isa Town. In the film, we refer to it as Madinat Isa. Of course, this is so modern, with modern schools, open spaces, gardens, markets, health centers, small shops and services that are just next to your footstep. And in fact, in that particular town, we built the very first soccer stadium, and since then I think Bahrain has also received one of the football famous tournaments in the Gulf. Indeed, that particular town changed the life of people. The country realized that by measuring that the demand on housing started to go up at that particular time, and our journey has started. It started with the establishment of Ministry of Housing. To be able, their mandate is to manage the housing, the social housing. Housing Bank was started, and Bahrain has also started building its second new town in Bahrain. Housing issue became so challenging, and this was the second turning point in our journey. The Kingdom of Bahrain decided at that time, in 2002 to be exact, to work or to engage or to partner with UN-Habitat and UNDP to help us draft the very first strategy and housing policy and strategy until 2020. Of course, the outcome of that study was so useful that we still embarking on it. Number one, we started drafting our first comprehensive eligibility criteria, the first PPP housing project ever in the region, and we engaged also the private sector for the first time in that time. Our third turning point in this journey happened in 2011, where the country decided to go ahead and build 5 new towns, again placing housing at the center of development and certainly leaving no one behind. And this was with the intention to increase or boost the supply to match the demand at that time. Of course, we had a true partnership, an excellent partnership with UN-Habitat and UNDP, and we can easily, proudly announce that they have been a true partner through our journey. The fourth turning point in our journey is that we continue boosting the supply of the housing stock. the private sector started to take a bigger role to help in taking its responsibility. In fact, at that time, more than 10,000 units was delivered through the private sector. A new initiative, as we have seen in the movie called Messiah, it's a fast-track program. It gives the citizen access to immediate access to housing. We started a list of legislative and reforms within the ministry and within the government to allow the private sector to take extra role in doing so. What we did, ladies and gentlemen, through this journey, over 4 decades of doing business, providing housing, social housing for the citizen, we managed to provide an excess of 140,000 housing services to our citizens. We invested a little over $10 billion over this program, and we proudly can say that a little over 65% of Bahraini citizens on the waiting list now they all own their own houses. And perhaps when I'd like to conclude by asking all of us a question: what more can we be done, or cannot be done, can or cannot be done to change people's life? Thank you very much.
It now gives me pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is Maimouna Mod Sharif, the Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UN-Habitat, please.
The Honorable Ministers of Bahrain, Angola and Lesotho, Ms. Olga Algayerova, Executive Secretary of UNECE, Mr. Maurad Wahbi, ASG and Director of Regional Bureau of Arab State, UNDP, representative from Bulgaria and Malaysia, Excellencies, distinguished delegates and participants and friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here, and I want to start by highlighting how unique this event is. Our sincere gratitude to the Kingdom of Bahrain, here represented by the Honorable Minister Wasim bin Yaqub Al-Hamir, Minister of Housing, for hosting this important side event, talking about shelter and housing. I would like also to thank the Government of Angola, Bulgaria, Malaysia, and Paraguay for co-organizing the side event and coming from afar to share with us lessons learned from your initiative on affordable and adequate housing. We have gathered here today for countries representing all regions of the globe and united towards a common goal to provide adequate, accessible, and affordable housing for all. UN-Habitat is honored to work with all of you. I commend your efforts and commitments to the new urban agenda and the sustainable development goals, and reiterate our full support to achieve sustainable cities with adequate and affordable and accessible housing for all. Allow me also to thank our sisters UN agencies, UNDP, and the UN Regional Commissions for the partnership and the collaboration. UN-Habitat had counted on your important support to implement projects in these countries. Together, we have demonstrated how UN can deliver as one to achieve a better urban future for all. This is one of the demonstrations of one UN under the Secretary General reform. I also would like remiss not to mention and thank the International Peace Institute for hosting us today in this beautiful building and a beautiful scenery outside and beautiful weather, and supporting the organization of this side event. Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, housing is at the heart of UN-Habitat's work. That's why you see that is the settlement. We acknowledge that critical challenges around housing such as affordability, accessibility, adequacy, slum and inequality have negatively affected people's life and sustainability in cities. Since the inception of UN-Habitat, we have worked to promote the right to adequate housing for all and assisted member states with their housing initiative using our normative and operational tools. As you know, housing issues are also high in the global development agenda. Both the SDGs through the target 11.1 on providing access for all to adequate, safe and affordable housing by 2030, and the new urban agenda recognize the importance of adequate housing as a factor of sustainable development and people's well-being. These sets allow me to remind you the magnitude of the challenge ahead of us. Almost 1 billion people currently live in slum-like conditions. By 2030, UN-Habitat estimates that 3 billion people, about 40% of the current world's population, will need access to affordable housing. This translates into a demand for 300 million new units by 2030. I see this as a challenge and also as an opportunity. The growing urgency to provide adequate and affordable housing to millions of households is an opportunity to overcome challenges related to environmental sustainability, poverty and inequality, and positively influence cities to embark on a path to sustainable urbanization and prosperity. In responding to these challenges and harnessing these opportunities, UN-Habitat promotes the Housing at the Center approach, which was endorsed by Member States in 2015. Housing at the Center provides guiding principles for holistic policies and strategies, both for the national and local government, to achieve transformation on the ground. And in the past 2 years, more than 35 countries have benefited from UN-Habitat support to strengthen their policies and institutions, as well as to design solutions to improve supply and affordability of the housing. In this connection, there are 4 principles we promote within the framework of Housing at the Center approach. First is about putting people and human rights at the center. Building houses is about building home for the people and also building community. As mentioned before, housing is more than a roof and 4 walls, but the right to live somewhere in security, peace, in dignity. As we develop, formulate and implement our tools, policies and programs, we should place people and human rights at the center of our thinking and actions. In doing so, our focus should be on leaving no one behind, and this requires our special attention to housing needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable, women, youth, and those who live in slum. Fulfilling the right to adequate housing is interlinked with other human rights. Second, housing is a vector of social-economic development. The nature of the housing sector is one that touches every single aspect of the economy of a country and has interface with practically every social development sector. People living in adequate housing have better health, education, higher chances to seize opportunities in cities. At the same time, the housing sector that performs well acts as a development multiplier benefiting complementary industries, contributing to economic development, employment generation, and poverty reduction. Third, building houses is about building cities. Because more than half of the urban fabric is commonly made up of residential areas, housing development decisions shape urban form and are key to sustainable urban development. Urban planning can enable the provision of housing that are connected to livelihood opportunities with access to infrastructure, transportation, and other services, contributing to reduce spatial inequalities, fragmentation, and urban sprawl. Producing housing is affordable and easily accessible is the key to reverse the inequalities in cities. Fourth, one of the purpose of today's event is to reiterate a longer term of collaboration among countries present today, facilitated by UN-Habitat with the support of our UN partners towards sharing knowledge, designing solutions, and championing changes on the ground. I would like to say thank you to the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Honorable Minister Basim, for our collaboration, partnership in preparing the national housing policy that he has mentioned just now. This is also to show the importance of national government having an integrated, holistic, sustainable development plan with policy, including housing policy, where it shows that the implementation of the policy to program and to action and shows in the video just now. There is important work to be done. I count on your commitment and championship and offer our full support to make a real difference in life of the people we serve, starting from the furthest behind. Thank you very much for the attention. Thank you.
And now we will hear welcoming remarks from Olga Algayarova, who is Executive Secretary General, UN Economic Commission for Europe.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and if I may tell, good friends of affordable, adequate and safe housing. I wish to join my previous speaker, Her Excellency Madame Maimunah Moht Sharif, and to thank His Excellency Minister bin Jacob Al-Hammer and the Ministry of Housing of the Kingdom of Bahrain for organizing this important event here in Europe. I would also like to thank the co-organizers of this event, our long-time UN partners, UN-Habitat, UNDP, UN member states, Angola, Bulgaria, Malaysia, and Paraguay. We are extremely grateful to the speakers and participants who will have the opportunity to share their valuable experiences in this event. Access to decent and affordable housing is a fundamental human right and need. The UNEC Social Housing Study finds that housing is the least affordable human right at all. At least 100 million low and middle income people in the UNEC region are housing cost overburdened. They spend more than 40% of their disponible income on housing. High housing costs for low income households leave limited resources for other basic needs, such as food, health, clothing, transportation. This means that the lack of affordable housing makes other human rights increasingly unaffordable and makes discussion on achieving adequate, safe and affordable housing through the implementation of the global and regional international accords on sustainable development very timely. The adoption of the 2030 Agenda in 2015 and the new Urban Agenda in October 2016, followed by the adoption of the Global Indicator Framework for the Sustainable Development Goals and Targets in 2017, established an important global framework for our future work. The regional framework agreements, such as the Geneva UN Charter on Sustainable Housing, which was endorsed by the UNEC member states in 2015, and the Ministerial Declaration on Sustainable Housing and Urban Development adopted in 2017 are also important tools to translate key principles of the global agreements to the regional level. The Geneva UN Charter is an innovative instrument as it promotes an integrated approach based on the principles of environmental protection, economic effectiveness, social inclusion, participation, and cultural adequacy. This integrated approach will require collaboration between all stakeholders. An excellent example of such collaboration is our collective effort on strengthening evidence-based and participatory housing policies and strategies globally, a collaboration between UN-Habitat, UNDP, and the 5 regional commissions. The partnership with the other UN agencies is an asset to guarantee a comprehensive integrated policy framework. The global network of the UN partners with its headquarters and local offices is an excellent tool for facilitation of the dialogue with a range of stakeholders at country level, from national ministries to academia, private sector and civil society, guaranteeing a participatory policy-making process. Apart from this project, UNEC is carrying out several activities. One of the flagship products is the series of country profiles on housing, urban development and land management, a tool for reviewing achievement of SDG 11 and other urban-related SDGs at national level, and a tool for comparing the progress made internationally. Those country profiles are conducted on the request of EC member states, coordinated by the Secretariat and drafted by independent international experts. Following completion of a country profile study, UNEC monitors and supports the implementation of country profile recommendations through the preparation of national action plans, supporting development of new laws and implementation of technical demonstration projects. The most recent completed country profile is the profile for Kazakhstan. As a follow-up to the country profile, UNEC develops demonstration projects. To follow up on the recommendations of the country profile on Kazakhstan, a smart, sustainable city district project in the city of Astana is being developed. The project is expected to generate investments into the refurbishment and densification of the smart city district while ensuring long-term social, economic and environmental sustainability of the measures. This approach is planned to be extended to other cities of Kazakhstan and will be further disseminated through the global initiative U4SSC and its network, including 15 UN agencies. We warmly invite you to visit Geneva and discuss your further cooperation. Please be informed that the 79th session of the UNEC Committee on Housing and Land Management will take place on the 4th and the 5th October at the Palais des Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. We will also host several events during the Urban Week on 1st to 5th October, which will address housing policies and homelessness, building national capacities for housing and urban development, and sustainable real estate markets. Again, we warmly invite you to participate to these events. I wish all of us a dynamic and fruitful dialogue today. I hope that this event will help us build up on our existing partnerships between the UN system organizations, UN member states, the private sector, academia, and local authorities to continue working towards our common aim. Let us work together to address the global housing challenge. Thank you very much.
Our final speaker making introductory remarks is Mr. Morad, who is the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Regional Bureau for Arab States at UNDP. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Honorable Ministers, Executive Director, Executive Secretary, Excellencies, colleagues, hopefully all protocols observed, and friends all. It gives me really great pleasure to be here today to join with you. Allow me first to thank the co-organizers of this event in the High-Level Political Forum as a side event, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the International Peace Institute for hosting us so kindly. I knew that the International Peace Institute had many miracles in terms of peacemaking and peace building in its long history. I didn't know that weather was one of them. What we are doing today is looking at nothing less, I believe, than the future of development and the future of our common humanity. And that is not because we are here in this context discussing housing and affordable housing and therefore tailor our ambition to the event, but really because in the next few years the majority of the world's population will be living in an urban setting, a feature that we have today in the region where I serve, the Arab region, where at least 2/3 of the population lives in an urban setting. In this context, I think the comparative experience of different countries, different areas, is very important, not only because of the importance of housing itself, but because of the central position it holds for all of us engaged in development cooperation. Yesterday, the Kingdom of Bahrain presented its voluntary national review in the High-Level Political Forum, and I'm very glad to see, as of yesterday and today, the very strong commitment to housing as a human right, and indeed, as you have said, Executive Secretary, as the foundation for the achievement of all human rights. So congratulations on that. Allow me, if I may, to raise a few points, but first, perhaps if you allow me, Mr. Hoog, just one reflection on the video we saw, and I think a reflection which is the more important because it hasn't actually been addressed directly, and it's also not in my notes, so I thought I'd extemporize on that one. I would really strongly congratulate you on the importance you give to the role of women in housing, and to particular attention to the gender dimension in the solution of housing crisis. This is something we all need to do, and we need to learn from you. So thank you. So with that, if I may, perhaps three very broad points as a start of your discussion, and then I won't take much more of your time. The first is that adequate, affordable, and safe housing is not an economic or an infrastructure issue. It is an issue of poverty and how we deal with poverty. Poverty rates in many cities are low compared to poverty rates prevailing, say, in rural settings. However, poverty in many cities is becoming an urban agenda with the prevalence of slum dwellers, for instance, and the very particular challenges that slums pose to our understanding of urban space and our approach to dealing with poverty. To ensure that the urban poor in particular are not left behind, we need to understand who the urban poor are, where they are found, and what the drivers and determinants of poverty in an urban setting would be. The second broad point, if I may, is that housing is a resilience issue as well. With the growth of cities and with the increasing urban population, the exposure of these people to climate and disaster risk also increases. Concentration increases risk. And today we have about 500 million urban residents around the world living in coastal areas and increasingly vulnerable to storm surges and the rise of sea levels. So there is a very close link between the urban agenda and the resilience agenda. Promoting disaster-resistant construction practices, for instance, through the improved planning of land use, through the development of building codes, through risk assessment and disaster databases, must inform urban planning in the future if we are to ensure safety. This, I think, is brought more to the point when we look at the increasingly vulnerable poor in urban settings, who are much more vulnerable, of course, to urban disaster risk than the better off people. And third, housing is a governance issue, because housing and urban settings allow us, and I'm speaking here in front of the mayor of the world, because I believe that within cities we are afforded much greater opportunities for political participation, but indeed even greater challenges for this political participation in how people manage their own lives and even how organize services which they are delivered, etc. Perhaps, if I might be allowed to conclude on two different aspects. The first is the centrality of housing and an urban agenda for the achievement of human rights. But the second, and I think you referred to it, Executive Secretary, is the commitment of the United Nations to work through an urban agenda. And I hope, Mrs. Mills, that I'm not perhaps revealing too many secrets when I say that the Secretary General has instructed us to ensure that the new urban agenda is at the heart of the new UN Sustainable Development Frameworks and at the heart of all our collective work in countries. I thank you.